You're about to see 10 of the best anime that will absolutely crush it in a live-action format if it is done properly. From the crazy fantasy shounen to the more mature storylines with saucy elements. Here are 10 animes that need an anime adaptation. 7 Deadly Sins. Starting off with a banger of an anime that started off great but slowly deteriorated. 7 Deadly Sins is set in a world of myth and magic, where different races of people exist, such as humans, demons, gods, giants, and even fairies. In the first part of the story, in a land called Britannia, an evil army of knights called Holy Knights took over the nation, and one of the princesses named Elizabeth, with no prior experience or strength, set out on a mission to find an infamous and powerful band of knights called the 7 Deadly Sins, who were actually framed for crimes against the nation. Elizabeth runs into the leader of the knights, the dragon sin of wrath Meliodas, who promptly takes a liking to her, and they set out on a mission to find the other deadly sins. As an ancient evil continues to grow in the land, the 7 deadly sins are at the heart of it, and they have to do something about everything. One thing peculiar about the 7 deadly sins is the depth that it goes into with each of the sins. When I tell you that you haven't seen such layered characters with compelling stories and broken abilities, move to the live-action screen. 7 Deadly Sins will work well in live action because of the diversity in the story, the action, and its deep roots in European myths and legends. Baki. If you're looking for a story about martial arts with another set of broken characters and an in-depth breakdown of what it means to be a fighter that's interesting as hell, then Baki is where it happens. Baki's story is complex and straightforward at the same time. The story is about a boy named Baki Hanma, who was essentially bred to fight, and all he wants to do is surpass his father, Yujiro Hanma, who happens to be the strongest man in the world. I mean, I'm talking about a man who can stop an earthquake by punching the earth, a man who presidents have to swear oaths to. Baki is famous for its over-the-top fight scenes that are gory, bloody, and yet somehow grounded because no matter how crazy things get, there's always an explanation deeply rooted in martial arts. But what's more, Baki is a boys kind of content. It features muscular men and bodybuilders, and though it has its roots in Japan, Baki encompasses every culture in the world that celebrates martial arts. Code Geass. It's hard to explain the complex and awesome story of Code Geass. Set in a world where Britain or Britannia retains its superpower status and has subjugated the nation of Japan, up to the point that the nation's citizens are mostly referred to as numbers. A young man named Lelouch, who lives in Japan, gets caught in a terrorist attack and encounters a strange lady, CC, who grants him the powers of a geese, which is essentially just a mind control device that lets him control people. Now you might be wondering, well, that's cool, but what does that have to do with anything? Well, here's where things start to get crazy. You see, Lelouch is the son of the King of Britain, and he doesn't like his father due to an incident that happened with his mother, so to get back at him, Lelouch decides to ally with Japan to get revenge for his father and to free the citizens of Japan and to ensure his younger sister Nunali lives a good life. But don't think for a second that Lelouch is a good guy. Like the story, the characters are heavily complex and nuanced, with amazing world building, some of the most incredible politics you will ever see in an anime, and some insane action. Code Geass has it all. Psycho Pass. This is one of those anime that's just so deep that you can literally pull layers and layers of thematic allusions to society, and you will never get to the bottom. In the world of Psycho Pass, world peace has been achieved, and it's all thanks to AI. The gist of it all is that there's a neural network system known as the Sybil system that essentially calculates the probability of a person carrying out a crime even before that crime is committed. So once the odds of doing something wrong increase for a person, they get arrested and taken out for rehabilitation, or if they pose a serious threat, they get taken out on the spot. The persons responsible for doing these kinds of things are called inspectors, and they get to work hand in hand with enforcers who are potential criminals working off their sentences as officers. Our main character gets plunged into this dystopian world and starts to uncover the very nasty truths that hide under this facade of social harmony, while dealing with powerful criminals and prejudice from people who hate the system. The lore for Psycho-Pass is deep, and it's something that will really resonate with a lot of people now that AI is all the rage. Dr. Stone, imagine a world where every single human being has turned to stone, and I mean in every sense of the world. Literally every single person, living and breathing, got turned to stone one day, and no one really knows why. 3,700 years later, a young man named Senku, who has an almost unnatural grasp of science, is the first to break out of the petrified state. And he wakes up in the stone world at a time when all the scientific creations of man have long been destroyed. With his scientific knowledge, Senku figures out a way to undo the petrification process, and by so doing creates friends and enemies for himself. Senku's goal is to bring back the lost human civilization and save everyone by creating a nation of science. But as he is doing so, the threat that once petrified all humanity still exists and is very much concerned about finishing its mission. This will be a show for the ages if it is done properly. Dr. Stone is extremely funny, action-packed, rife with mystery, and it really compels the viewers to think. Plus, at its core, the show is a love letter to science, and its vernacular translates to people of all ages in whatever demographic, even if they don't have a basic understanding of science. This is the kind of show you will be able to watch with your kids and enjoy at the same time, so it will translate really well in live action. Berserk. Berserk is nasty, guys. It is probably one of the most bizarre storylines in the manga anime subgenre. I mean, how would you feel about a series where the main character is subjected to nothing but pain and torture? Just because? Berserk focuses on Guts, a mercenary who was born from the corpse of his own mother and brutally maltreated by his stepfather. He manages to escape the throes of his family and joins a band of mercenaries called the Red Hawks, led by an overly ambitious leader known as Griffith. Guts falls in love with a member of the Red Hawks, but unbeknownst to them, Griffith aspires to become a demonic god, and his ambition puts the entire group in danger and causes Guts and his beloved to be hunted by demons constantly as he tries to stop Griffith and his demons. That is just a rough summary of Berserk, as the story is a lot more nuanced and complicated with exciting characters, dystopian world building, and some really strong messages of pain and suffering. This is not a story for the lighthearted, and if Hollywood dares to take this to live action, it's either going to be really well received or audiences are going to shriek in horror. The Promised Neverland. This series has the potential to be the next Stranger Things if it's done properly. Set in an orphanage where children are raised and groomed to be the perfect little kids for adoption, Emma, Norman, and Ray are some of the brightest kids in the entire home, and they are all cared for by the housekeeper, who everyone calls Mother. What starts off as a fun and happy story between orphans finding family and trying to survive suddenly takes a dark turn as Norman, Emma, and Ray realize that every kid in their home is being raised to be the perfect food for demons, and the worst part is, Mother is in on it. This shatters their reality as the kids realize that they have to save every one of their brothers and sisters, even the babies. Emma is hell-bent on saving everyone, and this puts strain on her relationship with Norman and Ray, but still, through the twists and turns they manage, they find out how big their world is and just what the reality of their existence entails, and it is not a pretty one. The Promised Neverland is one of those storylines that will effectively turn heads as live-action audiences get drawn into this bizarre world. Spy X Family. This is one of those anime stories that just works as a movie or TV show, even if it uses concepts that everyone is familiar with. It does it in such an original and comedic way that just absolutely slaps. Spy X Family, or just Spy Family, is focused on three individuals, a guy named Agent Twilight Lloyd Forger, who is the quintessential spy, great at disguises, profiling, and overall riz under the name Lloyd Forger. He is given a mission to infiltrate a particular family whose child attends a very prestigious school. To do this, he needs a family. So he adopts a young child named Anya, who is a telepath and can read minds. Lloyd has no idea. He also gets a sham marriage with a lady named Yor, who is an assassin and needs the cover of the family to stay hidden. Both Lloyd and Yor have no idea about each other's identity, but Anya does because she can read minds. They form an unlikely family, each using the other for their own separate needs, developing family bonds and having the most unlikely adventures. The story is funny, touching, and overall original, and I think it's a story that will absolutely work well in live action and appeal to a lot of families. Monster. Monster is about Dr. Kenzo Tenma, a surgeon working in a German hospital who basically has his dream job. He is the star surgeon of his hospital, able to work wonders with his hands and perform the most difficult of surgeries. But soon Tenma notices that the lives that are prioritized in the hospital are lives of the wealthy and beneficial personalities to his hospital, and that any life not seen as an asset isn't really a priority. After years of doing what he's told, Tenma decides to operate on a supposed nobody, a criminal for that matter. And this singular act tears down the veil of Tenma's world and reveals the deep corruption existing around him, as well as a conspiracy that affects the lives of everyone he holds dear. This is a thought-provoking storyline, one that will cause not just great entertainment, but debates in almost every demographic. Vinland Saga. Lastly, we have what's arguably one of the best anime storylines that have come out over the last decade. The Viking story is known as Vinland Saga, and this will work so well in live action that it's not even a joke. First of all, forget the fact that Vinland Saga has anime roots. Further than that, Vinland Saga is actually based on the true historical story of a series of epics known as the Vinland Saga. Essentially, the overarching plot of Vinland Saga is the story of a man named Thorfinn and how he progressed from his village in Iceland to find a place known as Vinland, a prosperous land of vegetation and fertility which is hard to come by in Iceland. The story really picks up when Thorfinn's father gets murdered in front of him as a child, and Thorfinn goes on a mission to avenge his father from a very young age, and then gets drawn into a war-torn England as the Danes and English fight for ownership of the land. It's a tragic story filled with politics, philosophy, compelling villains, and some really fantastic fight scenes. If you're familiar with the show Vikings, then you should know that the series protagonist, Thorfinn, is actually a descendant of Ragnar from Vikings, which is an amazing piece of trivia. In the end, this will go well in the movie scenes, as Hollywood needs more of these original and fantastic stories if it hopes to stay relevant. So that's our list of anime that need a movie adaptation. What are some of the anime you think will work well in a live action format? Let us know in the comments below, and check out this other video where we talk about the worst movie sequels in human history, only on Cinema Cascade.